were really afraid that we were going to lose the house in the water that came down.
We took them out one by one. We were at the tippy toe on my chest waders to get out of it.
This is probably the worst I've seen in 38 years now. All the rivers are like chocolate milk.
People are desperate to cross this main highway that connects with the rest of the province.
Oh my God.
Jack, we're going to have to get the dory out, Jack.
Even back in '93, I don't think it was as bad as it is here today for this area.
It's really too early to tell what the total cost would be, but we know it's certainly in the millions and millions of dollars.
Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Here and Now. I'm coming to you tonight from Corner Brook, the area that was hardest hit in the flash flooding and some of the horrible weather that happened over the weekend. And we are talking about a large area, a dire situation all the way out to Lark Harbour at the edge of the Bay of Islands, where the highway there is still washed out. Major flooding all the way right up to the Corner Brook area and as far east as Hampton Junction. Then it goes as far west again as Trout River in Bond Bay, where people there had no power for 2 days. Well, Ryan, it didn't seem like a lot of rain, and yet it had such an effect. What happened?
Well, that's right, Anthony. It wasn't just the rainfall. Remember that temperatures were also into the teens. So when you talk about rainfall totals up to 100 millimeters in places like Grand Lake, the Upper Humber, 91 millimeters of rain recorded there. 40 to 60 millimeters recorded at Deer Lake and Corner Brook. And while, yeah, we've seen a lot of rain this time of year, the snowpack was impressively deep after weeks and weeks of onshore flurries and snow squalls. You add in those temperatures into the teens, the rapid snow melt, and all that water has to go somewhere. And so it's been draining, of course, into the lakes, the rivers, and of course the Humber. And speaking with Municipal Affairs and Environment this afternoon, Debbie, they are still watching the Humber very, very closely. And I'll talk more about that coming up in a few minutes.
Okay, thanks very much, Ryan. And Anthony, I'll be speaking with MP Goody Hutchings about what the federal government will be doing to help those affected, and also the mayor of Lark Harbour, whose community is still cut off. But let's go back to you.
All right, thanks, Debbie. We'll also hear from Premier Dwight Ball, who we spoke to earlier today in Trout River. Well, Little Rapids, just outside Corner Brook, was hit hard by rushing water. Here's what it did to the TCH in the area. Residents believed that it was going to all wash out quickly. And sure enough, it did. And as predicted, within a few hours, part of the Trans-Canada Highway gave way. Government workers were quick to react to try to get a lane open, and eventually they were successful. And now another area that was affected by the rushing water that took out the highway also took out this road leading to Hammond's Farm. Obviously devastation, quite something. What happened here?
Well, yesterday morning when we had the pile up on the highway there and all the issues with their culvert, when it broke free and a huge gush of water and debris came through, it ultimately plugged our culvert here in the farm, backed up water and eroded the road.
Right. So what's the impact on you right here? Because obviously they've got the top of the road up there. This used to be connected. What does it mean for you?
Essentially, this has cut our whole farm in half.
How high did the water go up here?
We're probably about 30, 40 feet down. It was about 4 feet from the top, so
wow.
Give you a good idea. Yeah. About 15 years ago, this actually washed out one time. So this culvert and this whole area has been recently redone. And so to kind of tell you how devastating yesterday really was to us.
How big a job is it to fix this?
I would imagine it's a week's work for a crew. I mean, a lot of people seeing pictures from the highway and what's going on out there. It's going to be a 48, 72-hour operation around the clock. We're looking at something of the same capacity here.
Right. Any concerns about the weather and how things are going to go over the next coming days as we try to sort of rebuild?
Well, I'm certainly happy to see the minus temperatures. I hope we don't get too much snow that's going to affect the crews working on our rural roads and highways.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So obviously some really horrible news for David Simmons and the farm. His farm's literally cut off, and that's just one of the areas that was battered by this weather over the weekend. My colleague Colleen is here now. She's been very busy as well. You were checking out the story along the Bay of Islands, right?
Yes, most definitely. So we have a lot of state of emergency still in effect along the Bay of Islands. So parts of Humber Arm South, York Harbour, Lark Harbour that you mentioned earlier, and of course certain areas around Johns Beach are still under states of emergency. It is a mess down there. Water, houses flooded. And you know, as people start to dig out from this devastation, they're really starting to see the mess that is underneath. I want you to take a look, of course, first at York Harbour and Lark Harbour. That is where the road is completely washed out. We have two communities cut off to the public completely. Crews are down there trying to install culverts and get this road up and running so people can, of course, get more access to the other areas. People are worried down there. They're worried that there's going to be an emergency and they have no access. I want to take you now to Johns Beach, where I was earlier today. And of course, to make matters worse, the road is now closed off in Johns Beach. So I was trying to get to Lark Harbour and York Harbour and couldn't get there because now the road has given out in the Johns Beach area. So you've got cracks, you've got the road starting to move and change there, so they've closed it to the public. And that area, of course, is certainly under a state of emergency. Operators are trying to figure out the damage underneath that to see what we're looking at, of course. Now I want you to go to further down the Bay of Islands, getting closer now to Corner Brook, to Benoit's Cove. Look at the damage here. You had a house completely submerged in water. The house, the cars, the truck, the garage. Saturday it was completely submerged. By Sunday morning the waters receded. It was all because a brook nearby had backed up and the heavy rain just flooded the road and this house. Just down the road from that, I found another house today, completely destroyed by the water and the mess. This time a garage. So the land completely moved and shifted behind the house, and the land took over the garage, pushing the car out into the road out of the garage. It was with such a strong force. We went inside the garage. I couldn't believe the damage. You have trees and mud inside the garage, and it's just a complete mess on this lady's property in Benoit's Cove.
I have never imagined anything like this before. It's complete devastation. I mean, you go up the road and, you know, there was a family there that their home is completely submerged. And I mean, you're not hearing about people whose basements got flooded and you know, that seems, that's a lot for some people. People have a lot of their property, their belongings, their valuables, things destroyed by this thaw.
And you know, Pike said it best, Anthony, that we're not talking about the basements that are flooded because we're looking at this massive amount of damage. And a lot of people on this west coast have been affected. And I'm going to come back later in the show and tell you a little bit more about what I've been seeing over these past few days.
All right. Stay tuned. Colleen will be back a little bit later on Here and Now. Of course, one of the big stories that's developed over the weekend, of particular interest to people who enjoy skiing, what is going to happen at Marble? Not just a question of a ski hill operation, but also of a major driver of the economy in many ways here, in particular in the hospitality industry. Carolyn Stokes is at Marble. She was there earlier today, and she is there now live. Carolyn.
Well, Anthony, there is a lot of activity here tonight. You can see behind me that parts of the hill are lit up. Heavy machinery has been coming and going. The groomers are going up and down the slopes, and the snow machines are on blast. So the pressure is really on to get at least some of these runs open as soon as possible, not just because of all of the lost revenue from having the hill closed during this peak season, but also because Marble Mountain is going to be hosting a national sporting event starting this Wednesday. Hockey Day in Canada is coming here, so the workers are trying to get everything fixed up, but they have their work cut out for them. I took a tour of the damage earlier today.
Well, we're working on it like around the clock. There's no stopping here now. It's just 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until we get this thing back and running. The biggest problem is now we had a huge mudslides. As you can see behind me right now, we have, that's all pure mud that's underneath the lift. We're looking at about 6 feet of mud. So we need to get this mud out of there now before it freezes, because it turns into concrete, and that's going to stop us from operating the lift. So it looks like about a day we'll have that problem resolved. Biggest problem is up on top of the mountain. We have some major damage here, like for our electrical lines, underground lines, and of course the snowmaking lines.
This is one of the most heavily damaged areas on Marble Mountain. The other day, this was just a torrent of water rushing down the hill. The crevice is about 300 feet long, 10 to 12 feet deep. This will all have to be filled in and then covered over with man-made snow to get it up and running again.
Right now, we got a major problem here that we got to correct within the next 24 hours.
How do you fix this?
Well, the only way to fix this, of course, like if you're on the highway, of course, you back a dump truck up and drop materials down. Unfortunately, in our situation, we don't have that luxury right now. So basically what we're going to do is take all the contaminated snow that we got, like when I say contaminated, the mud and everything's mixed. We'll push it in the holes. We're going to blow snow over the top of it, groom it all over, and we'll deal with it in summer. We have a budget built in for this, for anything that happens this way, within reason, and so far it's within reason. Now, as we won't be talking next week, and we might have some more bad news, but if it's just what I see now, that's not going to be a big issue. Thank God for me anyway. But I mean, I want to be clear to everybody, and I think everybody can understand, looking at the damage, we got to do an assessment. We're working around the clock, like I said, to go through this. So we're not quite sure, but I feel pretty comfortable right now that we can manage this and get this under control by the weekend.
Yes, you heard that right. He hopes to have the main run open by this weekend. Now, I also spoke with the Premier today about how much all of this could cost the province and taxpayers.
Well, there's been no ask yet. Spoke to Tony and his group earlier today, and they haven't asked. They've been out there working diligently. We supported Marble Mountain in the past, but really right now there's been no ask. He's telling me actually in his view that it is more cosmetic than it is cost, and so he feels that he has a group here now to be able to tackle this current problem and get this place to open up.
So no indication yet about cost, but there certainly is a lot of optimism. Tony Abbott hopes to have this lower run open by this Wednesday when Hockey Day in Canada is set to get underway, and the Stanley Cup is actually supposed to take a run down this lower hill behind me. So Ryan, do you think Mother Nature will cooperate and bring some snow to this hill?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much, Carolyn. The good news is I do think Mother Nature will bring a little bit of snow for Stanley to help slide down that lower run there. In fact, have a look. This is for tonight and into tomorrow. I think Corner Brook at least getting into that 5, maybe as much as 10 centimeter range. Not enough to really hinder crews, which are trying to make so many repairs as we've seen to the roads and whatnot, but enough to help Marble Mountain in the situation there. Amounts obviously really increasing as you work your way towards central and the northeast coast, especially through the heaviest amounts into Tuesday morning. 15 to as much as 25 centimeters from Conegra up through the Bonavista Bay area to the Bonavista Peninsula, down through Clarenville. And then for the Avalon, it's going to be another messy mix. We're talking about snow transitioning to ice pellets and freezing rain through the morning commute tomorrow. So it's really going to be a mess. And then we will see perhaps even a little change over to some drizzle as temperatures edge closer to the freezing mark. Northwest Avalon, likely a bit of mixing here, but mostly snow. And of course, that bullseye back further to the northwest. We'll break down your timeline in full detail with the next couple of days in detail coming up in just a few minutes. Debbie?
Thanks very much, Ryan. Well, in other news tonight, a popular stop for drivers on the Trans-Canada Highway has been destroyed in central Newfoundland. The Badger Diner was razed to the ground in a fire last night. Here Now's Garrett Barry brings us there.
The rubble sitting here is all that's left after 35 years of history for the Badger Diner. Owner Lillian Saunders was in the building when it caught fire Sunday night. She escaped, taking a few family mementos.
And when I heard the noise, I came in and have a look, and my back room was afire. She wasn't full-fledged fire, but she was a fire. So on the way out, my mom gave me a vase that she made when I was a little girl. I grabbed that, and I grabbed the ornament that my dad gave me, and that's all I got from 35 years.
By the time firefighters arrived, the building was in trouble, and when they left early this morning, it was completely knocked to the ground. Saunders says her family built this business up by hand, pouring their heart and soul into the diner. She says today is a difficult day for her and her staff.
I can't even tell you what I feel. I really can't tell you. I'm just so devastated, and I'm upset, and and I just wanted to thank the customers that support me over the years, and that's all I got to say. I'm very glad for the ones that support me, and I'm glad that, I'm thankful for the staff that I have, and I don't know what else to say.
Saunders says there's a lot of great memories in this place. She is particularly proud of an award she won for her fish and chips. Today, though, it's not clear whether this diner will be rebuilt and whether Saunders will fry fish again. Garrett Berry, CBC News, Badger.
The jury was selected today in St. John's for the first-degree murder trial of Ann Norris. The 7 women and 5 men were picked this morning. 30-year-old Ann Norris began to cry almost immediately after she was led into the prisoner's dock for the jury selection. Norris is accused of killing 46-year-old Marcel Reardon in May of 2016. His body was found under steps behind the Harborview apartment buildings in downtown St. John's. Norris was arrested 4 days later. More than 200 people were crowded into 2 courtrooms at Supreme Court for the jury selection. The jury will begin its work when the trial gets underway next Monday. Shocking details about a shooting last year were revealed in court today. Harold Noftel and Mabel Stanley have pleaded guilty to aggravated assault and forcible confinement. According to court documents, the two helped lure a 21-year-old man to their home on Springdale Street. 4 people tried to saran wrap him to a chair and beat him. The victim escaped but was shot by a 16-year-old boy. Noftel pistol whipped the victim while Stanley cleaned the scene and lied to police. Crown is asking for almost 10 years for Noftel and up to 6 for Stanley. Well, fresh off this weekend's second-place finish at the National Figure Skating Championships, Caitlin Osman is heading to the Olympics next month. The Newfoundland-born figure skater was named to this year's Canadian Olympic team on the weekend. Last spring, Osman and Gabrielle Daleman, this year's national champion, became the first Canadian women to share a World Championship podium, winning silver and bronze. And still with Newfoundland athletes, it was another winning weekend for Brad Gushue. His team, North America, won the Continental Cup of Curling after defeating Team World. The game came down to a dramatic tiebreaker that came down to final shots between Gushue and Sweden's Thomas Ulsrud.
Coming up after the break, I'm going to take you to Trout River, where today I met 2 boys who were playing ice hockey. Yesterday, they were rowing a dinghy on the exact same spot. Stay tuned. One of the areas that was hard hit in all of this was Trout River. I went there today with CBC journalist Germain Eaton to check it out, met some of the people, and found out what they were coping with. Take a look.
Lost the water.
What happened here?
The brook come out and it kept going, kept getting a bit higher and higher, and then she just come on around my house, all around both sides. And when my basement door bust open, I ended up with about 3.5 feet of water.
Right, now you're still pumping water outside the house right now. We came in, you could see it. How much water have you had to get rid of?
I got over 2 feet pumped out now, and I got the small pump on now, electric pump managed getting in now, and I'm pumping it with electric pump now.
All right. Now I tried to look around the whole basement. Like there's still a few inches of water here. What's the damage like for you?
Probably $7,000 or $8,000 worth of damage or more. My washer, dryer, all my tools, chargers, stuff like that. Like anything electronics I left in the basement was all gone.
Right. Now you do live close to the water. Have you had flooding before?
I've had some flooding by it, but like nothing like this. Like it's just been probably like odd time. If you pump quit or something, you'll probably get a foot or a foot and a half. But then you get your pump working, you get under control again. But I had 2 gas pumps on, them 3-inch gas pumps, and I couldn't do nothing with it.
Right. How long do you think it's going to take for you to get this all fixed up? Because obviously it's getting cold again, and this is a mess, right?
Yes, it's going to take me the rest of the week. I'd say, time I get it all cleaned up. I should have the water all out today, but I'm going to be the rest of the week getting it cleaned up.
Yeah. And insurance that covers something like this?
I haven't got no insurance.
Why not?
I haven't had no insurance on this in the last probably 20 years.
So you have to absorb this yourself?
Oh, I hope not. Hopefully I'll get some help from somebody.
The government. All right, well, we'll see what happens with the province. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Can you put this flooding in some kind of perspective? When's the last time you've seen something like this?
It says over 50 years around in 68 or 69, because they ran out through the school opened in 67, and it was a year or 2 years after that when the flood came out there and was run out from the school and run out the road from the river. Like we've had it from the small feeder there, block up and go the road when about 27 or 28 years ago.
So what's happened this weekend is what did happen?
Well, I had heavy rainfall, and then we had a lot of snow back on the hills in there, like on the back country, and then everything got to run out through, and then just the rain comes so quick that the river rose and just flooded all out through. Like come from the river, run in all directions. Like.
So from a safety point of view, what are you looking for as you go through houses like this one?
Just going around volunteering now, just to help people get their basements dried out and like make sure that all the electrical stuff is in working condition and that.
Yeah.
So.
How long do you think it's going to take Trout River to clean up from this messy weekend?
Oh, it's going to take, I'd say, going to be a good part of the spring, or going to be late in the springtime to get the roads and everything all fixed up, because on account of the frost and everything now that comes quick, like, and they're not going to be able to do all the patchwork and everything until later on in spring.
I had a boat over right here tied on to a fence. There was a fence there too.
Yeah.
That all went out and washed up on the beach, pulverized, beat to pieces, right? You see, I took this with the loader, took the rear end and shoved on top of the logs and tied them all down so they wouldn't float away, and thank God they didn't. Well, I had some now packed the other way there. They're all gone out the brook.
So you lived here all your life?
Yeah, in Trout River.
Trout River. So have you seen anything like this before?
No, this is the first time thing, right, for me. Now, I think apparently it happened years and years ago, but...
So when you saw the water level rising, what were you thinking?
I didn't think it was going to come so like it did, right? And thankfully now that the ice never broke up in the pond. That would have been a disaster, right?
So what kind of cleanup is Trout River looking at?
Oh, I just wouldn't be able to say. I mean, this piece of land up here, there's about 30 or 40 feet of that all gone, right? Where that was out. The river is probably twice the wide as it was.
The river's much wider than it was, right?
Yeah.
So Ethan, what's happened here over the last couple of days?
It was raining really hard, and the brook was flowing from the brook's out there, and it was flowing all through these gardens and down through the driveway and everything, and out on the roads. And it was scary because it was washing out the driveway, and all this was all water, and it was like a 1.5 feet deep.
Right. And now you've actually got a skating rink. Is this usually here?
No. Usually it's like a little bit of water up across that right there.
Right. So today you're skating, but apparently yesterday you were actually in a boat?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
Me and my brother there were rowing around in a rubber dinghy, and because there was water and we had to like row up and back to get to our house.
It's kind of wild if you think about it. So you're skating today, and yesterday you were actually paddling around in a boat. Is that what you were doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
You ever done anything like that before?
Not really.
So what's it been like for you guys over the last couple of days with all the warm weather, then the rain, the flooding?
Well, I found it quite fun.
Fun?
Because yesterday we were in rubber dinghy, and today we're like skating around on ice.
Yeah, not so fun if your basement's full of water, though, right?
No.
All right, so can you see water sports one day, ice hockey the next. It's been quite the weekend for a lot of people in this area. Also in Trout River, Debbie met up with the Premier, and we'll be sharing that interview a bit later on Here and Now. Debbie.
Quite the weekend indeed, and we will check back with you. Thanks, Anthony. Well, the neighboring towns of York Harbour and Lark Harbour find themselves cut off from the rest of the province. This after more road damage today along Route 450. It's added to the woes in the area, which has been under a state of emergency since Saturday. Melanie Joyce is the mayor of Lark Harbour. And Mayor, what's the state of the road now?
Right now, we had construction started this morning in our area known as Rattlers Brook, where we have the large washout. As progress was starting to, I guess, go ahead there, then we had an area in Johns Beach before we get to our washout. The road dropped about a foot, so now the road is closed in there too as well, so which means that we're not getting materials down to our washout to get that going, and they have another issue that they have to deal with also on Route 450.
So I understand all the culverts and equipment that you needed to begin those repairs today, that's all just had to be put aside, and things have come to a halt.
Yeah, so we do have some equipment and some supplies here, but obviously we needed more that was coming back and forth from Corner Brook, right? So now that's to a halt, and there's nothing else coming through Route 450 to us now.
Any word on when you'll be reconnected to the outside world again?
We don't know. It could be days. It's the way it looks, it will be days.
What are people telling you firsthand about the damage that they've experienced and how they're coping with it all?
For the town's residents, I mean, obviously they're on cleanup mode right now. We had a lot of residents that had floods in their basements, so they're trying to clean up all of that, the mess in their homes. So, and then, of course, we have trying to work on our by roads to repair those. So, yeah, we're on cleanup mode too as well.
Yeah. And when you say people are, had flooded basements, is it like a handful of people, or are there dozens and dozens? What's the situation?
There's dozens. I'm probably safe on saying probably between 40 and 50 homes that have been flooded, right?
Wow. And the town's infrastructure, how's that been affected?
It seems to be doing okay. Our town, we didn't receive a whole lot of damage to our by roads. The town of York Harbour did more extensive damage in there, but we're doing okay out here too.
Mayor Joyce, I know you had some dialysis patients airlifted to Corner Brook today. Tell us about the situation.
So this morning around 9 o'clock, we had a chopper land at our Coast Guard station here in Lark Harbour. There was 4 dialysis patients that were transported to Western Memorial Regional Hospital, where they received their dialysis. And around 3:30 this afternoon, they were transported back again here to Lark Harbour. And then we had a few more residents that went back in the chopper back to Corner Brook again.
And are they in serious medical condition?
No, we had one resident that had a medical appointment, actually 2 residents, and we had a lady and her husband. They are scheduled to have a baby, I think, tomorrow.
Wow, what an ordeal for all these people. Any parting comment that you can leave us with, Mayor Joyce?
Yeah, it's definitely, you don't realize when you're cut off from the central area, I guess what we call Corner Brook, you don't realize that when you start running a little bit lower on supplies and stuff, yeah, it's like we have a chopper coming tomorrow that'll be doing runs for supplies here for the 2 towns.
Mayor Melanie Joyce, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's not just Marble Mountain in tatters from the weekend storm. Crews are scrambling to repair another sporting venue in Corner Brook. Details coming up.
Driving around Corner Brook and the environs as we've been trying to bring you special coverage, it's amazing to see the power of nature with roads ripped apart in so many areas. Ryan Snoddon, we have had deep thaws and heavy rains before. What was so different this time?
That's a great question, Anthony, and really it's a lot of factors went into this. You think about it's been snowing on the west coast for weeks and weeks and weeks, so the snowpack was deep. And then we had all of the rain, and we had temperatures into the teens, and the ground is frozen in January, and it had to go somewhere, and so it all runs into the lakes and rivers and streams. And have a look. We're not just talking about a little bit of rain here. Grand Lake, that weather station recorded over 100 millimeters of rain. 91 millimeters at the Upper Humber. Deer Lake, Corner Brook in that 40 to 60 millimeter range. And of course, these are just 4 of the spots where there are weather stations. Local amounts could have been more than 100 millimeters in some of these areas. So you take all of that rain, all of that snowpack that then melts, and it all runs into these lakes and streams. Now, Emergency Services and the Water Resources Management Division were closely watching all of these smaller rivers and brooks initially. Now that they've peaked, the focus switches to the Humber. And speaking with officials today, they're watching a couple of spots at Reedville, just north of Deer Lake, of course. It appears to have peaked, which is good news, although they're still keeping an eye on that, thinking that perhaps ice could be holding some more water upstream, and so not quite out of the woods here. Now we come down a little bit to Deer Lake itself, and that area of the Humber, that water is still rising. So obviously they're keeping a very close eye at the Deer Lake station. Now we come down the Humber, and just of course, just up from Steady Brook, there is the Humber River at the Humber Village Bridge. It also is rising, and you can see there, this is the alert line where anything above this starts to get into something they're watching very, very closely. And with the water level still rising, obviously they are keeping a very close eye on things. And until all of this water can get out to the ocean, emergency officials are going to be keeping a very close eye on the situation in western parts of Newfoundland. The good news is no rain, just some snow, and not a lot of snow coming, 5 to as much as 10 centimeters through Corner Brook and the Humber Valley region over the next 24 hours. Amounts will really increase as you work your way west. 15 to 25 centimeters, once again, will be our bullseye from the Bonavista Bay area down towards the coast of bays. It's a messy mix of snow changing to ice pellets and freezing rain. We do have a freezing rain warning in effect, for St. John's and the southern parts of the Avalon. Sustained period of freezing rain, 4 to 6 hours or more, looking set for tomorrow morning. The system itself is still back to the south. You can see where the radar is starting to pick up some of that mixed precip just south of Nova Scotia. That is what's on its way to us. Let's time it out for you. Through the overnight, the snow ramps up. Early goers, well, they're going to be encountering some snow from St. John's and the Avalon across to the Burin, even central parts of Newfoundland. Snow pretty much for everybody in this area, even some light snow up towards the Corner Brook region to start the day tomorrow. Now we're into 7 a.m. and you can see where through the morning commute is where we'll go from snow to ice pellets to freezing rain through the morning, and that freezing rain will continue across the Avalon. Snow will be heaviest for the northwest Avalon, Clarenville, Bonavista, and back into central parts of Newfoundland. But this is a quick mover. Exiting through the mid to late afternoon, done certainly by the drive home, and it's cleanup time. And so we are talking about those winds that will be a little on the gusty side as well. So not ruling out some blowing snow. Keep that in mind. Temperatures in the -4 range, -22 to -24. But a clear day in Labrador, and again, even some afternoon sunshine for places like Corner Brook. And the good news is not just one day that is somewhat quiet, again, tomorrow afternoon clearing out nicely, but 2 days where crews are going to be able to get a little bit of work done. It's just a few flurries into the afternoon for Corner Brook on Wednesday. We do have another system coming in for Thursday that looks like a bit of a snowmaker for Corner Brook, but another mix for central and eastern Newfoundland, and we'll talk about that coming up in a few minutes. Throwing it back over to Carolyn Stokes, who's live at Marble Mountain and keeping an eye on the latest there. Carolyn.
Well, Ryan, snow is certainly welcome in this neck of the woods. You can see behind me that the snow machines are working overtime to get some snow on these slopes as soon as possible, get some of these runs open, not just because it's peak money-making season here at Marble Mountain, but also because a national sporting event is coming here this Wednesday throughout the week. the National Hockey Day in Canada is coming here. And it's not just Marble Mountain that's trying to get ready for that big event. Outside the Corner Brook Civic Center, 2 outdoor rinks were built specially for this event this week. Both rinks totally ruined by the rain and the warm temperatures. So crews with Public Works and volunteers will be trying to build up the ice surface there again. And of course, that takes time.
Before our rain event, we had probably 4 inches of ice on it to build up to get a base. And now after last 2 nights, we just pretty well lost everything. So last night we managed to get some ice on the lower one. We're going to kind of get this one back together now, and hopefully we'll go back and forth to each rink trying to build up about 4 inches of ice.
Do you think you'll get it done in time?
We will get it done. If Mother Nature cooperates. She has been not nice lately, but we're hoping by time Saturday we'll have it all done.
Yeah, the temperatures are in your favor though.
It's nice, and nighttime is where we'll get our best value. So we have a crew who's on night shift and some volunteers going to try to keep going day and night right until Saturday.
So yes, a lot of determination, a lot of optimism to get everything ready as soon as possible to make the best out of a bad situation. Reporting live from Corner Brook, I'm Carolyn Stokes for Here and Now.
Well, still with the flooding on the West Coast, MP Goody Hutchings on what the federal government will be doing.
Well, in times like this, it's certainly to be expected to see political leaders coming to survey the damage. That's definitely the case with Premier Dwight Ball, who's been in this area. Of course, he's the Premier, but more than that, a lot of the damage has also happened in the district to which he is an MHA. I met up with Dwight Ball earlier today in Trout River. Premier, you've been looking at Trout River. What are your impressions?
Well, this is a community that is widely known across the province to be one of the most tourist-friendly, busy communities that we have. It's a very busy fishing community as well. So we see the devastation that has taken place over this weekend because of weather or because of rain and snow melt. And speaking to residents that have been here for quite some time, lived all their lives here, and said that they've never seen this in Trout River before.
Looking at the damage on the West Coast in general, what are your observations now since this all happened Saturday?
Well, many communities like Trout River is still under a state of emergency. We have Lark Harbour, York Harbour, Humber Arm South still in a state of emergency. So there's quite a bit of damage that's been done, both to provincial infrastructure and personal infrastructure as well. People in some communities are getting back. The major routes are being opened. Still not every community is connected to the larger centres, healthcare centres and so on. There's a lot of work left to be done to getting those services restored, but we have crews working at every single site, doing the best they can to get those things repaired.
Premier, obviously you get briefings and you're probably more up to date on what's going on in certain locations. Any sort of trouble areas or places presenting particular challenges?
Yeah, overnight, and this situation continues to evolve, but overnight we had some more damage that was done really in the Johns Beach area, which would be in the Bay of Islands, which meant that we had to take crews from Rattlers Brook, which was replacing those two large culverts, which would connect York Harbour and Lark Harbour. So that has presented some problems for us today there as the devastation and the infrastructure continues to erode as a result of the rainfall and snowmelt.
Last question for you. At what point in all of this do officials try to put a dollar figure on the damage?
It's early to tell. We know we're certainly well beyond the threshold of the federal government disaster relief funding, so we're well beyond that. But at some point, we have officials that are working at this today, trying to, put to some measures of what the totals will be to try and actually determine where the costs are today. But it's really too early to tell. Our priority really has been to support the communities and the people that are getting the infrastructure back in place. But we'll have those numbers over the weeks. And I would anticipate with snowfall, again, that some of this will even continue to add up over this spring. But I've spoken to Minister O'Regan yesterday. They're fully aware that we'll be coming to them, as I'll be meeting with the federal caucus again on Thursday this week.
All right, Premier Ball, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So as you heard, the Premier says the federal government knows that we're going to be coming to them. Obviously, they'll add up the costs and try to figure out the amount of damages, and that's where the federal government will come in. And Debbie Cooper's got that side of the story covered for you.
Okay, once again, Anthony, thanks very much. And the Member of Parliament for the riding of Long Range Mountains, which sustained so much damage this weekend, is Goody Hutchings. We reached her at the Corner Brook Stream Trail this afternoon. Well, Ms. Hutchings, have you ever seen anything quite like the damage from a storm like this before?
Debbie, I've lived on the west coast of Newfoundland all my life, proud to say that, but I have never seen the damage throughout the area. It's truly astounding, it really is.
Now, you were telling me that where you're standing, the water has really gone down, but just how bad was it over the weekend?
Well, on the weekend, one of the bridges here at the Corner Brook Stream Trail, the water was literally lapping up and under. And matter of fact, they had the stream trail closed. And again, the walkway meanders along the side of the stream. And you want to make sure that people still are cognizant of the fact that people haven't done an assessment of, is there erosion, is there anything in under, so how stable are the areas? And that can be said for the roads everywhere. Some of the damage is very visual. You can see where culverts are out and roads are washed out, but we don't understand, and it's going to be a long time before we can do a proper assessment, and the officials can do a proper assessment of the real damage underlying.
Ms. Hutchings, what kind of stories are you hearing directly from people?
Naturally, of course, many have been impacted, especially in the south shore of the Bay of Islands and Trout River and Woody Points area, where the communities were totally cut off. There was a lack of medication for some, and thankfully the Coast Guard was able to get in and help out there. And the Coast Guard has a helicopter in that area helping out getting people back and forth for medical appointments. And we've also had calls of people, with flooding in their basements and sewer backups and road washouts. So we put them on to the proper municipal authorities and hope that we can get through this. And like I said, the focus now is to get things safe for people, get the, and I must say, I've got to take a time to say thank you to all the workers that are out there tirelessly, the volunteers, the neighbors that are out, the businesses that opened on the weekend that are usually closed, and the first responders. Everybody has worked tirelessly to get things back in order.
I want to ask you, as the MP for the area, what assistance is available from Ottawa?
There's, in situations like this, Debbie, there's the Disaster Financial Assistance Arrangement Program. And basically the Coles notes is the communities, the municipalities go to the province, and the province does an assessment and comes forward to us, and we work out the payback and the arrangements that we can help out. There are some thresholds, but trust me, from what I've seen over the weekend, the province will have no problem meeting the thresholds. It will be able to help. I'm honored that my colleagues are coming here. Minister Reagan and my provincial MPs are here. We're having our winter meeting here before we head back to Ottawa. So we're going to find some time in our meetings to get out and shake the hands of the people working on the ground and see the damage firsthand. And also at that time, we're going to have a chance to meet with the Premier and start the initial discussions of how we can help federally.
MP Goody Hutchings in Corner Brook this afternoon, and she says it'll likely be a long process to finally arrange relief and get it to those who need it. And tonight's young athlete of the day is Austin Hiscox of Freshwater in Conception Bay. Austin's 10, and he's the youngest bandolero driver in Eastbound Speedway.
Wow, as a matter of fact, he was awarded Most Popular Driver of the Year in Atlantic, Canada.
Woohoo.
He also plays hockey in the CD's Minor Hockey Association. Congratulations, Austin, you're today's Young Athlete of the Day.
The weather update is brought to you by Belltone Hearing Service St. John's, helping the world hear better.
Okay, back to the weather again. More warnings.
Scrape, scrape, scrape.
Oh,
freezing
icy
rain. Yes, freezing rain. The warning for St. John's and the Southern Avalon. So make sure the scrapers are ready for tomorrow, especially into the midday time period as we go from snow to ice pellets to freezing rain. Snowfall warnings are in effect for the Northwest Avalon, and then especially areas of the Northeast Central towards the South Coast. This is where we will see our snow bullseye, 15 to 25 centimeters through this corridor. Wouldn't be surprised if we do squeak towards some 15, even 20 centimeter totals possible for the Northwest Avalon down towards the northern Burin, but generally in that 10 to 15 centimeter range. Amounts drop off as you work your way west. In terms of the timing, system still well to the south. It tracks in tonight, so a messy morning commute for most of Newfoundland. Just getting into the snow in Corner Brook, but snow well underway by the time you're off to work in central and eastern parts of Newfoundland. And again, all of that ice across the Avalon through the morning into the early afternoon hours. By mid-afternoon, the snow starting to depart, and Wednesday is a much quieter day across the region. That's the good news. As we roll into the Wednesday late day into Thursday time period, our next system approaches, and in fact by Thursday morning likely into some snow along the west coast. But look at the track of this system, much further to the west, and so it looks like the southerly winds will once again warm us over to some rain across eastern, possibly even central Newfoundland through some ice, but looks like we'll stay mainly snow, at least for the west, into Labrador as well. Watch your timeline here. Thursday into Friday, that system departs. Some onshore flurries back on the menu for Friday along the west coast. And watching a weak disturbance to track through Saturday with some light snow, possibly a mix again over the Avalon and the south, although the track will be really key with this one, with a bit of light snow in the mix for Labrador as well. And so a quick look at that 7-day trend shows temperatures, again, a little bit of a yo-yo here as we cool down through Tuesday night into Wednesday, rise again Thursday with some mixing central and east, and then Friday cooling right back down. And again, watching that Saturday, Sunday, light snow potential. But if you do have some travel plans, you'll want to stay tuned for updates on that. And into Labrador, you can see cold is the name of the game with some snow potential Thursday and again into the weekend. All right, time now to head back out to the west coast. That is where Colleen Connors is tonight. Colleen, you were on the scene all weekend. Can you give us a sense of how this unfolded?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So from first thing Saturday morning when I woke up to some water in my basement, it really hit me that this was a serious situation. And every scene I've been to over the past 2 days, 3 days now, you know, I'm still in shock by what kind of devastation that we've had on the west coast. It started in Saturday morning in Corner Brook with water gushing down some of our streets. The water levels were so high. We had water main breaks and major spots all over Corner Brook, and the water was pouring, and the warm temperatures, of course, meant all that heavy snow in Corner Brook, well, it was melting. And then 15 kilometers east of here, well, the entire highway was giving out. In the Little Rapids area, I watched, you know, they were blocking off the highway, keeping cars from going in either direction, and that road completely was starting to give way. A thin level of pavement was still there when I got there that morning. Of course, you know, I watched this couple that I'll never forget. This couple were so desperate to catch a flight for their honeymoon that they were tossing their luggage over this closed highway, trudging through snow and heavy water, throwing the luggage, trying to get to their flight to catch their honeymoon in Florida. They were waiting for this vehicle to pick them up off this side road and take them all the way to the airport in Deer Lake. They were so desperate not to miss this flight. It was really something I'll never forget, watching them try to cross the highway. Now, their flight was canceled that night, but they did eventually make it to their honeymoon in Florida. And of course, then the aftermath. That heavy water flowing through Corner Brook. That's Corner Brook Stream that you see there. The water levels were so high. I was so surprised. So many people out getting really close to that, getting photos and video, and I couldn't get over the levels of water rushing through Corner Brook here. I mean, and then of course the devastation of trying to clean up once everything froze, and the shots there of Marble Mountain. What a mess. And there's a lot more mess left. I mean, this place is just, we're going to be facing a lot more damage and a lot more mess to come. Live in Corner Brook, I'm Colleen Connors for Here and Now.
And there's just enough time for us to say goodnight to you, Anthony, and thanks to you and the entire crew. Fantastic coverage. And